All right, looks like we're live. Let's make sure everything's going out okay onto the old YouTubes. Come on. Come on. Is it going live or not? There it is. Okay, here it is. Pardon me. All right, so let's see. Somebody says Word got a Bechtloff afternoon stream. Yeah, for once things are actually quiet in the afternoon. Usually aren't, but oh, pardon me. Should have gotten some water first. So I had, the Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. Everybody's shitting on how bad it looks. I really don't think it looks that bad. I mean, it doesn't look that particularly good, but I don't think Marvel vs. Capcom 3 looked that particularly good. I never cared for the art direction presentation or whatever in that either. I'm just kind of happy Marvel vs. Capcom is even still a thing. You know, all the people that are like, oh, it looks like it looks terrible compared to, I don't know, whatever the name of the new Dragon Ball Z fighting game is. It's like, it's a Dragon Ball Z fighting game. Aren't those always shit? I don't know. Maybe that's just me because, you know, I think Dragon Ball Z itself is shit. I mean, I'd rather play the worst possible Marvel vs. Capcom game than a Dragon Ball Z game of any kind. So that's admittedly my own bias. But last night I was, a buddy of mine was over, stopped by, and we were playing some Marvel vs. Capcom 2. Now that's a damn good game. And like if I wanted a sequel to Marvel vs. Capcom at this point, like give me Marvel vs. Capcom 2.5. Give me Marvel vs. Capcom 2, but with even more characters. I mean, it always bugged me Blanca wasn't in it. That's like my favorite Street Fighter character. And then certain, I mean, it was way too X-Men. Like people bitching that Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite has no X-Men characters. I mean, the previous games have almost all been way too fucking X-Men heavy. So I like Marvel vs. Capcom 2, but it would be cool if you had like, it'd be cool to do another one of those games in that art style, the pixel art, the really solid, really good looking 2D art. I mean, you know, look at the success Capcom's had with its Street Fighter Deluxe or whatever it is on the Switch. People like that. That stuff looks good. A lot of this modern graphics, it's technically more impressive, but it doesn't look as good. But I would have Marvel vs. Capcom 2, all those playable characters, plus add some more in. I mean, you got to have Thor in there. It's almost a shame he wasn't in there. Maybe somebody like Thing. You know, some of the characters are more popular in this here current year, like Deadpool and Rocket and stuff like that. And, you know, add more Capcom characters, a few more Darkstalkers, maybe Blanca, maybe a couple more from the Mega Man franchise, something like that. And then the biggest problem with Marvel vs. Capcom 2 is the backgrounds and the music. Marvel vs. Capcom 2's music is laughably bad. It's actually bad enough to the point where I enjoy it. But it is bad. The backgrounds are just plain ass generic backgrounds. So like if you could have Marvel vs. Capcom 2 with maybe a few more playable characters, and then you don't even have to make new backgrounds. Marvel vs. Capcom 1 had great backgrounds. Marvel vs. Capcom, or Marvel Superheroes, the Capcom fighting game, had great backgrounds. X-Men versus Street Fighter had great backgrounds. Marvel versus Street Fighter had great backgrounds. Just take all those back. This would be a great ROM hack to make too. If you just took the backgrounds from all those other Marvel fighting games, Capcom Marvel fighting games, and added them on top of Marvel vs. Capcom 2, that alone would be an amazing ROM hack. Because man, the backgrounds, I mean, it's not even to say that they're bad in Marvel vs. Capcom 2. They're just generic. They don't represent any franchise, as far as I know. Certainly not from Marvel, and as far as I know, from even Capcom. I mean, again, they're not bad. They would be okay, like extra backgrounds, you know, if you already put in a bunch and you couldn't think of anything else. But yeah, Marvel vs. Capcom 2 is generally it's really good. See, I love how fucking batshit crazy and random those Capcom Marvel fighting games are. You know, just and Marvel vs. Capcom 2 is where it just cranks it up to 11. Like I'm kind of introducing my buddy to it. He never really played it, and at first, I guess he's trying to play it like a different kind of fighting game. You know, where he's not quite accepting that this is just madness. Okay, that the match is controlled chaos. You know, don't try to be all finesse about it. Just go in there, guns a-blazing. I mean, hell, I usually just hit him with a super right from the get-go. The other thing I was thinking about as I was playing it last night with him, and we were actually chatting about it, is that it's so fucking weird that they never made a Marvel vs. Capcom comic book. Like there was never a comic book tie-in to this. And I realize you can't exactly, like, there is no, it's not like the Marvel universe meets the Capcom universe, because there's no fucking Capcom universe. I mean, you know, there is no shared universe that has, you know, Darkstalkers, Street Fighter, Resident Evil, Mega Man all happening at the same time and place. It just doesn't. But you could maybe have it be like a storyline, and I think 3 actually had this as its storyline, official storyline, where like something in the Marvel universe is pulling things in from these different universes, and that's just all the different Capcom universes. But it would have been really cool. I mean, hell, if you wanted to do it now, you could even like do like, you know, the first part of the story, is maybe like a Street Fighter X-Men crossover, you know, and it's sort of takes place in 90s era time period. You know, when the X-Men had belts and pouches all over fucking selves, looking like in the 90s cartoon. That would be really cool to do. And it's weird that Marvel hasn't done that over the years. And there might be some rights issues right now. I know just a few years ago, Mega Man, the comic rights were at Archie, and Street Fighter, for example, is being published over at Udon Studios or whatever. Same with Darkstalkers, I believe, because there's a Street Fighter Darkstalkers comic going on. But you could still probably be allowed to do it. I mean, even though Udon publishes Street Fighter, they actually had Street Fighter appear in a big crossover thing that went on in the Sonic and Mega Man comics over at Archie a few years ago. But yeah, that would be really cool to do. But I also was kind of thinking, like, Marvel's not really doing any crossover stuff right now. I mean, you know, crossovers between comic companies were just common as hell for a very, very long time. And there's none of that over at Marvel. Now, I mean, part of that could be on the part of the other companies. Who the hell wants to, you know, you might want your characters or your franchise to cross over with Avengers or, you know, whatever. But I mean, would you now that the Avengers are Durka Miss Marvel and, you know, Black Lives Matter Captain America and, you know, female Thor? I mean, who the hell wants to cross over with that? You know, who the hell wants to do a story with that? Whereas DC right now is pumping crossovers fucking out. They did a Batman Shadow crossover that they're doing a sequel to. The last couple of years, they did 2 Batman Ninja Turtle crossovers. They did a Justice League Power Rangers crossover. There was 2 Green Lantern Star Trek crossovers, a Green Lantern's Planet of the Apes crossover. Right now, there's a Wonder Woman Conan crossover going on, which is actually fucking terrible, by the way. I was kind of excited about that when I first saw it, but it's written by that old cat lady, Gail Simone, and she's just terrible. She wasn't always terrible, but she's terrible now. So he says, hey, I've been wondering what's a Durka. Durka is just how you make fun of, you know, Muslim talk, I guess. Angry Muslim noises. But yeah, there's really no something else I thought of as we were chatting about kind of Marvel crossovers last night. I don't believe Marvel's, to the best of my knowledge, Marvel has never had a crossover with anything Dark Horse was publishing. There has never been a Marvel Dark Horse crossover. Now, Dark Horse doesn't own anything. They publish entirely licensed things or create their own books, but they do publish a lot of books, and there's never been a Marvel. It's kind of weird, the internal politics that go on at some of these companies. I mean, hell, again, speaking of DC crossovers, I mean, the weird ones no one asked for. There's what is it? Archie or Betty and Veronica meet Harley and Ivy miniseries coming out here. Again, DC's just pumping these things out. But that's because DC knows, that, DC's at least trying to produce comics that are fun. You might sneer at some of those and say, "Oh, that sounds dumb," but at least they're out there saying, "Hey, what's some fun shit we could do?" Let's see what's going on in the chat. People are talking about the new Flatliners movie. Supposedly, I just read this morning that, at least at the time of that article I saw passed around on Facebook, had a 0% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. So that's not a good sign. Somebody says, apparently Nintendo released a mini Super Nintendo the other day, and I heard nothing of it. Oh, yeah, it's already sold out all over the fucking place, too, because they didn't make enough. Because, of course, they didn't. I actually was out and about yesterday. I stopped by Target 11 o'clock in the morning, and the guy told me they had sold out a half an hour after opening the store. Let's see. Yeah, again, I don't, and the whole time I was seeing it advertised, I'm like, yeah, that sounds cool. Too bad I'll never be able to see it. I don't know why the fucking Nintendo does this. People accuse them of artificially making shortages, but I don't understand how that benefits them. It's not like, they're seeing all that extra money from scalpers. Let's see. Somebody says there's going to be a new Saw movie this Halloween. I like the first Saw movie. I didn't really. I think I kind of liked 2, but I really didn't see a lot of the later ones. Somebody says I got 2 of them. Craigslist here. I can. Well, fuck you, fucking scalper. Seriously though, the people paying the exorbitant prices for these things is retarded. I mean, the NES Classic, it's a decent price at $60. But it is just a plug and play system. Those things that were, little mall kiosks 10 years ago. That's all it is. Now, it's a very, very, very nice one, with generally really, really good games. Really well done, save states, whole 9 yards. And then the Super Nintendo one's even $20 more. Now, you do get more bang for your buck. I mean, there's a lot more meat on a lot of those Super Nintendo games than there is on the NES games. Even just comparing Mario 3, for example, to Mario World. Yes, Mario 3 is really, really awesome, but Mario World is obviously the bigger thing. And then there's some RPGs and shit like that on the SNES Mini. So yeah, you're going to get a little more bang for your buck there, but still, I don't think anything over $80 is worth it for it. Let's see. I remember playing the Saw video game and thinking it was Konami trying to make how they ruined Silent Hill not so bad. Yeah, I think I only ever heard of the Saw video game. Like last year, I saw a video on it, but heard stores put in the order for the SNES Classic, so hopefully there's going to be this supply of them. Well, I mean, look, it's not the store's fault, okay? Like Nintendo, for example, with the NES Classic, just stopped making them, and that would have sold way more. Because first of all, people like actually having a thing. That's not the other, download. You could download all these games. Well, it's a little cheaper than downloading all these games on, say, your virtual console. But people also like that you bought a physical thing. And I know, like, Undertow argued with me and all. But I'm sorry, the fact that, like, the NES Classic was this cute, tiny little Nintendo. My last job, I knew 2 of the office girls were dying to get it. They were all excited when they heard about it. And I remember Undertow's like, well, did they actually buy it? I'm like, no, because they couldn't. Both of them were coming up to me hoping I knew where to find one. Again, Nintendo's just leaving money on the shelf with these fucking things. If they were smart, they would put the NES Classic back in production. They would boost production on the Super Nintendo Classics. And they would begin work on a fucking N64 Classic. Now, that one wouldn't sell as much. That one you actually might want to not throw as many out initially. But it would still sell. Dave Serini says, got my internet hooked up faster than expected, so my live stream is back on. Cool. Somebody says, like, buying Blu-rays instead of getting Netflix of Bechtloff. Well, the thing is, like with movies, you're buying a huge ass. Like a lot of people don't want to have a huge ass collection. You know what I mean? But it's a little bit different with video games. Plus, you have a cute little thing that you play all the video games on. Let's see. Hey, did anyone hear that there is a deleted scene in Spider-Man Homecoming where some black dude calls his nephew and calls him Miles? Apparently that is confirmed to be Miles Morales. Fuck my life. Whatever. That movie would have been so great if they hadn't fucking diversity casted the shit out of it. Let's see. So he says, don't give them any ideas. I don't know. I don't really think Disney's very keen on shitting the movies up. There's actually a lot of money involved in those. So he says, I know many people with DVD collections. Oh, yeah, a lot of people do. But I mean, a lot of people also get the Netflix and shit. But yeah, having like one thing. Oh, this little brat dog's crying. I ought to just kill him. What do you want, you little brat? Brat. You don't need anything. You've been out. You've been fed. Somebody says the dog is a Sega fanboy. So he says, so are digital downloads no longer a thing? No, they're a thing. I don't think they're a particularly good thing for the most part. They're not even cheaper half the time, especially with games. Like, I mean, I know on the 3DS Virtual Console, the digital games are the same cost as going out and buying them. You don't even own them. Let's see. Somebody says, fuck yeah. Remake Bloodborne with Lena Dunham and Amy Schumer, but the dome was made to lock them away from humanity. When are they going to remake Superbad? Yeah, at this point, why not? Mexican Bechtloff, which Mexican do you like the least? The new Blue Beetle or Miles Morales? Oh, I definitely despise the Mexican kid new Blue Beetle more. Because at least like when Miles Morales is wandering around the regular Marvel universe, it didn't replace Peter. You just have two Spider-Man for some reason, which is dumb. If I want a biracial Spider-Man, damn it, it's going to be Miguel O'Hara. Let's see. What's going on in chat? Somebody said Silent Hill 2 was good. You know, I've heard that. I've never played it. But then again, I kind of missed a lot of the fifth generation of games, as it were. Let's see. Remake the Super Mario Brothers movie now. Well, you know, it was, I guess, a year ago that there were talks that Sony was supposed to produce a animated Mario movie. Which I think an animated Mario movie would be really good. That said, though, I don't have any faith in Sony Animation, so I kind of hope that fell apart. But I would like to see a competent animation studio make a Mario movie. Hell, I'd like it if they just did an English translation and put it out of the Mario anime movie that they put out shortly after the first Super Mario Brothers game. That would be interesting. Have you seen Kingsman 2 yet? I haven't even seen Kingsman 1, if I'm being honest with you. Let's see. What else we got here? But yeah, that Sony dropped the Mario movie in favor of Emoji Movie 2. Well, supposedly they were going to make a Popeye movie, but then they made Emoji Movie instead. Somebody says Kingsman was so good, though. I think the second one looked good. All the trailers I've seen for it look good. I didn't really have any interest in the first one. It just, you know, nothing about it really grabbed me. I've heard good things about it, though, so I might give it a shot. I don't know, though. This being October, I'm kind of more in the mood for some horror movies right now. There's one coming out called Happy Death Day or something, where it's like some girl is killed on her birthday, and then she like wakes up Groundhog Day style, like again that morning, like back in time, and she's got to figure out, like, stop her killer. Keeps reliving the same day over and over again. That looked actually pretty decent. I wouldn't mind giving that a shot. What else is there was a new Chucky movie that came out. I guess I don't think it was released in the theaters, but Cult of Chucky. I kind of want to check that out. Curse of Chucky was actually really good. Most of the Chucky movies are not good. Child's Play 1, it's okay, but that kid in it cannot act at all. He just sucks the air out of like every scene he's in, and he's in most of the scenes. Child's Play 2 and 3 are just forgettable. 4 and 5 are when they basically became comedies. That was like Bride of Chucky and Son of Chucky, I think. Curse of Chucky, though, is the first genuinely... It's the first one that genuinely succeeds as a horror movie. Somebody says, are we getting a Ghostmas stream if it's Tuesday? It's a Tuesday, by the way. Yeah, come 31st, I'm planning on doing 2 streams. Now, I mean, it's a ways away. We'll see exactly how schedules shape out. But I was thinking doing a Halloween kind of theme, discussing favorite horror movies and things like that. And also I wanted to do a Reformation Day stream, celebrating 500 years of not having to pretend like what the Pope says should matter. Let's see. Somebody says, that being said, the original Super Mario Brothers movie was delightful. It's something to behold, I'll give you that. It's very weird. Like, it's weirdly adult and at times inappropriately sexual for a kid's movie. There's one scene where they're in, like, I guess the Mushroom Kingdom. And I mean, even calling it that is so ridiculous to me. But, like, there's the cops there, and then there's the other cop, like the female cop on there, and she's like rubbing her feet all over him, like this cop's got a foot fetish or something. And that's just in the middle of a fucking Mario movie. Somebody says, any horror movie where entitled kids are brutally murdered inevitably ends up as comedy. That's the problem a lot of horror movies of the last 10 years have had. Eli Roth, famous for that, where, if everybody's an unlikable asshole, then you don't care if they live or die, and therefore there's nothing about it that frightens you. Let's see. Somebody says, for horror, watch Dark Was the Night. I don't think I've ever seen that. Somebody says, you ever see Cannibal Holocaust? I don't believe I've seen that either. Bechtloff, I laughed my ass off through all of Exorcism of Emily Rose. I kind of like that one, actually. It had some good creepy imagery. It manages to actually be kind of scary while still PG-13, which isn't the easiest thing in the world to do. And yeah, I never had any problem with that movie, actually. I thought it was pretty decent. Now, I mean, I hadn't seen it since it was basically in... No, that's not true. I rewatched it back in like 2012 or something. But the first time I saw it was in the theaters. And once again, I got to try and police this little dog. Let's see. It would make a great horror movie, a Lena Dunham sex tape. So he said The Void was disturbing. What's a really good horror movie not enough people talk about is Cube. I don't know if you've ever seen Cube, but basically, like, this guy wakes up. Here's the initial scene of Cube. This guy wakes up in this perfectly cubed room with a small little door in the middle of each side of this room, the ceiling, the floor, and all the walls. Each one leading to an identical room. And he goes into the next one and is immediately killed by a trap. Some of these, the rooms are all numbered too, but some of them have deadly traps, some of them don't. And then you cut to other people who wake up in these rooms, and they get together and they try to figure out what's going on. Cube 1 is really good. There were sequels to it I never saw, but the first one is really good. Let's see. Cannibal Holocaust is the best anime horror. Well, that's probably why I didn't watch it. You know, it's an Animu. But yeah, check out Cube, man. It's good stuff. Let's see. Let me go through. I can find something here. A while back on my blog, I did a bunch of movies, and back in like 2013, 2012, shit like that. Curse of Chucky, that's a good horror movie. Let's see what else we got here. What else did I review on here? Trying to think. Some other good horror movies. Well, the Evil Dead remake was pretty good. I remember that. I was pleasantly surprised with that. Come on. Nightmare on Elm Street. Those are all solid flicks. I mean, some of them are kind of weak, but it averages out to a pretty good series. Let's see. Freddy vs. Jason. That's one of my favorites. Well, at that point, that's more a action movie with horror elements. You know, I don't think the Silent Hill movie is that bad. The first one. Now, I never really played any of the games, but as far as just a movie, I enjoyed it. Cube, already talked about that. Return of the Living Dead 3. It's probably my favorite from that series. Exorcism of Emily Rose in bed. The Nightmare on Elm Street remake turned out to be pretty decent, and I had no real hopes for it. Let's see. Jennifer's Body actually isn't too bad of a horror comedy. Jason X, which I think is the best Jason movie. Fuck you, I'll fight you on that one. I don't particularly like the Jason movies that much, to be honest. I think actually the soft reboot from a couple years ago, which I sort of more consider a back to basics sequel, I think that's probably honestly the best of the series. Somebody says play the first three Silent Hill movie or first three Silent Hill games. Yeah. Demons was a classic I never got tired of. Was that one Razor Fist reviewed last year? I seem to remember one by that title he reviewed. What about the 1990 version of Night of the Living Dead? Honestly, I can't really. I don't know if that's. Hasn't there been like 3 or 4 fucking remakes of that movie? I don't know. You're better off watching the original. The Dawn of the Dead remake from the mid-2000s isn't too bad. Let's see. Also, one last time I push this, watch Justice League Dark for Halloween. It's pretty damn dark, no pun intended. I might give it a shot. The DC animated movies haven't been too bad. Yeah, I might give it a shot. What we got here? So he says the Brad Pitt World War Z movie is top in my opinion. No. No. That movie is ass. Yeah. Now, in all fairness, my main beef with that movie is just simply that it's not the book. It's not even close to the book. It doesn't even try to be close to the book. And the book is an absolute masterpiece. You want something to enjoy for Halloween, you read World War Z. World War Z is one of the best novels of the last several decades. Let's see. Ed Wood was more comedy. Yeah. But yeah, World War Z, the book, I cannot recommend that enough. 28 Days Later is about liberals thinking they know what's best and destroyed society because of it. Yeah, you're not wrong. Bunch of jack-off Greenpeace guys are what causes the problem. Silent Hill 4, The Room is a good game. Basically, all other games after 4 are bad, though. Yeah, like I said, never really got into the Silent Hill series. Somebody says, so how was your Sunday, Bechtloff? It's all right. I mean, I didn't really do much. I went to church and got something to eat. Went to Target. That was about all I did all day. Lazy ass Sunday. Picked up the Wonder Woman movie on DVD. That movie's really good. You know, I saw an interesting. It was somebody on Facebook that I'm friends with, and I don't even know who this person is. I have too many people on Facebook I'm friends with that I don't know who they are, and I need to really thin that shit out. But he's writing little movie reviews on his Facebook page. And I didn't read all of it because I was scrolling through my phone, and I would have had to get into the actual post, and then, then when I get back out of it, I would have had to start over on my timeline. But he mentioned some other blogger was talking about The Dark Knight and saying like that's where superhero movies peaked, and there was quote unquote nowhere to go from there or whatever. I mean, that movie was in 08, and I just thought, no, it's not. And see, this is something I hear from people, and it's people that are sick of the superhero genre and they want it to go away. And I understand that. Even though I love it, I understand that because there's been shit tons of them. And what's worse, there's really nothing else. So I can understand you being annoyed with it by wanting to go away. But when I hear people make arguments about how this genre or whatever has peaked and needs to go away, or there needs to just not be more Batman films ever or whatever. No. See, I always thought that betrays a real lack of imagination. Don't get me wrong. This current crop of Marvel movies should probably wind down to some satisfactory conclusion and then be done with it. But then years later, you can pick it back up. There's nothing inherently wrong with reboots. There's nothing inherently wrong. I mean, some of the best stories are the ones we tell over and over again. And it's very interesting at times to get different takes on the same story. But if you're going to sit there and look at a whole genre and say, well, we're done with it, there's nothing else to do, that just betrays a lack of imagination on your part. Especially if you think it peaked with fucking Dark Knight. All right? Dark Knight wasn't that goddamn good. Okay? Yeah, the Heath Ledger Joker performance was amazing. The rest of it's only okay. It really is just only okay. Yeah, there's some high-ass fucking moments of philosophy in it. But usually the movie is not as smart as it thinks it is. And that's true for the whole fucking Nolan trilogy. they're not as smart as they think they are. They're good. They're good. Don't get me wrong. But they're not what they think they are. It's this idea of, oh, this genre's peaked. Oh, bullshit. There's so much more we could do with it. Craig Langley, he was in town. It was back when the Deadpool movie was out, and we saw it together, and he really loved it. But he was like, I guess the genre's done now. I mean, once you have a successful parody, where you go? Where you go? There are so many cool superhero stories that have not been anywhere near the screen. Big or small screen. There's so much more to do. Just based off of the source material of Marvel and DC, there's so much more to do. So the idea that, oh, this whole fucking genre is done. No, you're sick of it. And that's fine if you're sick of it. But, to say it's done, to say that, there's nowhere else to go with it, that just betrays a lack of imagination. I mean, fucking dog whining. You don't need anything. You just want to fuck around. And I can't let you run around unsupervised. You still haven't gotten it through your head where you're not to piddle. Let's see. We could always return to superheroes like Bible Man. I mean, seriously, that actually floored me, the idea that you think superheroes peaked at fucking Dark Knight. I mean, hell, I could almost imagine someone arguing they peaked with the first Avengers, because that was the first time you really saw the team dynamic, the coming together of different franchises in a really satisfactory way. I could kind of understand thinking it peaked with that. But Dark Knight, come on. Fuck that. The whole Nolan trilogy is not nearly as good as everyone likes to imagine. And frankly, they don't even really hold it. Batman Begins especially doesn't hold up to multiple viewings. Let's see. Who's messaging me? Let's see. Looks like somebody says in the chat here, I put Nolan Batman films in the same league as Watchmen. They're good, but can't be considered great or a peak for comics because they're more a deconstruction than an actual comic film. Yeah, it's easy to deconstruct a genre. And don't get me wrong, once in a while you need to do that. Once in a while it's very entertaining, and once in a while it's artistically very good. Sometimes it helps to take something apart. You can really better understand it that way. But if all you know how to do is take something apart, well, that's not really that good of a thing. And frankly, as time goes on, if you'd asked me right after Dark Knight, what do I like better, Michael Keaton's Batman from '89 or Dark Knight? I'd have said Dark Knight hands down. If you'd asked me now, I'm probably likely to say Batman. Because, for all its faults, it's an actual fucking Batman movie. It doesn't feel like it's a shame to be a Batman movie. Somebody said he had some horror movie talk. You want to hop in? I really enjoyed Ben Affleck as Batman, but disliked Batman vs Superman. That's exactly how I felt too. So he says, if someone says the genre's peaked with Dark Knight, show them Civil War. Yes, Civil War is a better film than Dark Knight. It's in many ways a more impressive film. Again, to get even close to telling the story of Marvel's Civil War on the screen is an impressive feat. All the Nolan movies ever really did was be crime dramas that kind of sort of have Batman in it.
Oh, evening, Bechtloff.
How's it going?
Good. Yeah, I mean, I was going to go on horror films, but just talking about Nolan, this is someone who has explicitly said he's not someone who reads comics. He was essentially taking the source material and doing something that he wanted to do. It's not like, even with Batman v Superman, as much as it's a mess, that is a arguably more of a comic book film, even though it's much of a
Yeah,
jumbled mess compared to
it's a
something like
mess
Dark
because
Knight.
because the story's just all over the place and it's not really sure what story it wants to tell. But at least it wants to be a comic book movie. Like
Mm,
Dark Knight Rises frustrated the shit out of me because of Catwoman.
mm,
Catwoman is the epitome of everything wrong with the Nolan movies. We never once refer to her as Catwoman. We never
mm,
see her in anything resembling a Catwoman outfit. The closest we get
yeah.
is her night vision goggles pop up and they sort of look like ears.
Mm.
But basically, we just refuse to have her be Catwoman because, oh, that's dumb. Like, you just know that was Nolan probably, like, scratched out every mention of the word Catwoman out of the script. Like, no, that's dumb. Like,
I'd actually,
it's bad enough I have to have Batman in it.
I'd further add, it seems almost like he's trying to scratch off every sort of, I wouldn't say cheesy is the right word, but anything like Batman is
Outlandish.
gone from the
Anything,
titles from the second and the third one. He's not
yeah,
there.
anything outlandish or fantastical is gone from it.
Yeah.
And the problem is, like, it's like, oh, that makes it more realistic. But does it really? I mean, Batman's back is healed with ancient Chinese secrets in Dark Knight Rises. So don't tell me we're going for realism.
Mm,
All it kind of does is just make it more boring.
mm. As I say, they're interesting concepts, and that's it. Actually, talking about the Batman v Superman, it's interesting to think Zack Snyder, who I think is an overrated director. I mean, I can't, aside from maybe 300 and Watchmen, they're the only films I like of his. I mean, he did that, was it Sucker Punch?
Oh, that's
Which,
terrible. That's like
uh,
it's like a 90-minute fucking music video from the 90s that never gets to the song.
oh, I mean, I've heard stories. I mean, I've had friends of friends. They're walking into the cinema, and there's about 12 teenage girls lining up to watch this, and they're the only one person. It's like, no one's going to watch this. No one remembers it. That's the interesting thing. It's
Oh, yeah,
forgotten.
when you bring that up, people are like, "Oh yeah, that piece of shit."
Mm,
But yeah, I mean, the Nolan. I'm glad the Nolan movies existed because it did take things in a different direction. Um, but to say that that's the peak of the genre, no, it barely is in the genre.
I mean, I'd say they helped maybe, I wouldn't say revitalize, but sort of bring, because I'm trying to think, I mean, Batman Begins wasn't what sparked it. I think that was a good, it's very rough, to say the least. I mean, especially when you consider, say, the action. Batman Begins compared to Dark Knight. Dark Knight, you can see Nolan knows what he's doing because the action isn't. Have you tried watching Batman Begins action? It's either close up shots in the dark or you can't see anything at all. Then
And
you
you know what?
compare it to
Some of it
it's
worked.
horrible.
Some of it worked at the time. Like that scene where Batman's got the guy strung up upside down in the rain and he's screaming at him, in his goofy Batman voice and shit. Like, I remember seeing that in the theater thinking, like, I would have shit my pants if I was that guy.
Mm,
I'd have been like, is this a demon?
mm,
Am I in hell? Just this guy barely lit, just screaming at you in this gravelly voice that scooped you up.
mm,
Like, yeah, I'd have shit my pants. He was like, swear to me. I'd be like, holy fuck.
mm,
But then at the same time, like, again, it was one of those things where it was very visually and audio,
mm,
it was impressive the first time I saw it. But then
mm.
the longer these movies go on and he's doing that voice all the time, like,
Yeah.
I get doing a goofy voice when, you're trying to intimidate some drug dealer and get him to piss his pants. But when you're
Mm.
just like talking to Commissioner Gordon, I mean, you really got to be like, this is this.
Who cares if he knows the secret identity? It doesn't matter.
I mean, just use it. You're a billionaire. Use a voice changer like Arrow does or something.
Well,
You don't have
they,
to do a goofy voice like you're at. Because when he's not yelling in that voice, it sounds like he's like out of breath or something. You know what I mean?
oh yeah. I mean, at
It's
least
kind of cool when he's yelling at you in it, but when he's just talking to you like this. It doesn't sound so scary anymore.
those parts almost sounds like a really bad porno. Come o- come over. I can't do his voice, but come over here.
Well, I mean, the guy doing it in the college humor like Batman skits.
Oh yes, they're
is
perfect.
only slightly more ridiculous. He's like,
It's
Superman, why do you want to?
well, at least they kind of changed it for Batman v Su I mean, I think he did use a voice changer. I mean, I'm still trying to block that film out of my memory, but I think he did do that.
Well, I mean, you talk about like the presence and all. Like, you could say, now don't get me wrong, Batman Returns I think was a rough movie, but both those movies. I mean, Michael Keaton managed to look intimidating when he smiled at you.
Mm,
He didn't have to do a goofy, gravelly voice
mm.
to try and skip. No, he looked intimidating when he looked almost more intimidating when he smiled at you.
There's a few interest. I mean, I was going over some of James Rolfe's old videos because they're occasionally fun to watch. I know he does his I think he's doing his October monthly Monster Madness, but
Oh yeah, I like that guy.
the movement of Batman's quite interesting because of you. Obviously, they do address it in Dark Knight, but the whole head movement, and then you watch the Keaton films, it's got that sort of very dark presence when he can't turn his. There's certain things where I think Keaton and Ben Affleck have got more actual presence. I don't think. I mean, even Bale admitted he didn't really do much with the character. That was the one regret he actually said after seeing Batman v Superman. I didn't do much with it. He's going to go down as not a bad Batman, but he didn't do anything.
Well, one of the things I think is interesting about so much of this over armoring in these costumes,
Mm,
and you've seen it spill into the comic book world. I mean, with Jim Lee's New 52 designs, where everybody just has armor for some fucking reason, and
mm,
superheroes originally in like the 30s and 40s had basically were wearing spandex. Like it was because it was based off of like Olympian and wrestler outfits.
mm,
And the reason those guys wear that kind of shit is because you can move more.
mm.
I mean, at a certain point, yeah, you're armoring up Batman, but is Batman there to take a punch or is he there to give a punch? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's missing the point.
Like one of the things I really liked about Spider-Man Homecoming, and yeah, the suit was all hyper designed by Tony Stark,
Mm,
but it didn't look as hyper designed as say the Sam Raimi movies where it had like raised metallic webbing and we
mm,
like Spider-Man, if anything, should just be fucking wearing spandex, all right? Because he's incredibly powerful. I mean, no, he's not the Hulk, but the motherfucker can bench press a Ford
yeah.
F-150 without breaking much of a sweat.
I mean, he
You
can
know,
take Captain
and
America
he
on.
needs to be, yeah, he needs to be flexible. And at a certain, like, some of the actors who have played Batman, Christian Bale admits that, like, when he was in that Batman armor, like, anyone on set could have kicked his ass because he
Mm,
couldn't fucking move, you
mm.
know? So yeah, when you over design the stuff like that, you end up with, I mean, yeah, maybe Batman should be wearing Kevlar under his suit, but his suit shouldn't be this like halfway to fucking Iron Man thing.
Mm. Well, that was even take for example Man of Steel and even Spider-Man to a degree. Those costumes are meant to be sort of the whole point is they have that I don't say handmade feel, but essentially they are handmade. I mean, if I remember correctly, Superman was made. His costume was made by obviously uh, whatever her name is on basically his foster mom.
Mm-hmm.
And then you look at the new one, it's sort of this. I have to admit, Man of Steel, I'm still mixed on. I think it's certainly not a shit film, but it could have been edited a lot better. The shaky cam always gets me with that film.
I think Arrow does a really good job of having a superhero costume that feels like it would be somewhat protective but also maneuverable.
Mm,
I mean, he's basically never wearing more than some heavy leather. You know what I mean?
mm,
Um, because he's not out there to just he's not out there to take a punch. He's out there to put an arrow in your fucking knee. Skyrim style.
mm.
And I just made Undertow blush, or I just made Undertow cringe if he's listening. But no, he's not out
Uh,
there to take a beating. He's out there to give one.
mm,
So I always thought Arrow did a really good job in not over designing the suit. And I mean, part of it is some of these pussies in Hollywood never been in a fucking fight. You know what I mean?
mm, mm.
So a
It's
lot of this stuff they design, they don't realize, they have no concept of how violence works.
well, it's a level of feasibility. I mean, clothing deteriorates. This sort of wearing heavy armor. I mean, I've worn sort of military fatigues doing sort of airsoft and stuff, and having a chest carrier with plates with all this armor. I mean, that's not even armor, that's just to carry munitions. You feel it. It's not like you're wearing a pair of jeans and a t-shirt. You can feel free in that. And I mean, again, it goes over a case of style v substance. A lot of people aren't thinking of this stuff. I mean, take for example, I was thinking the other day, Batman Begins. The entire plot is there's a giant microwave going. Essentially, the end is a giant microwave is going through the sea, vaporizing water. But the
Yeah.
point is, if it vaporizes water, then every person in that radius, who's essentially 90% water, would be eviscerated. I'm not thinking of that in the film. It's just
It
again,
sounds
it's a
like
plot device.
when you describe it that way, it sounds like something from the fucking 60s TV show.
just just do an edit of Adam West. God.
Like the Joker's turning Gotham Reservoir into Jello. I mean, it's
Well, that film had, I wanted to like Batman Begins. I did like the fact that Nolan once did use actual set design, especially for the monorails. But Scarecrow, how could you have a villain end up that badly? He just gets tasered.
yeah, Scarecrow is, and like he's just such a nothing villain, and he's almost Batman Begins almost doesn't have a villain.
No,
That's
Liam
how.
Neeson's forgettable.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's okay in it, but it's like he kind of just shows up. He's like there at the beginning, and he sort of just shows up at the end, almost as an afterthought. Yeah. There's no villain that is like a driving force in the story.
There is no joke, basically, you know. And even Bane, as much as we can meme him, he had presence.
Oh yeah,
I mean, presence, and certainly Cillian Murphy playing Scarecrow didn't have any presence. Mind you, when he did actually have the costume, it wasn't. I think he did a decent job.
He did the best he could with what he had to work with. But I mean, he had nothing to work with. There was nothing to that character.
Well, I mean, actually, I was going to mention the horror stuff. I don't know if you've been following Halloween production, but they've essentially confirmed they're going to scrub all of the films past 2, and it's going to be a direct sequel to. It's actually going to be Halloween free, and they've got Jamie Lee Curtis back to reprise the role again.
That's weird.
Well, the thing is, Carpenter's been really insane. I wouldn't say insanely loved, but he's been. It's not like, for example, I didn't think the Rob Zombie film was that bad. I can't remember the second one. I can't say much, but
he basically said the second one I think is terrible. My biggest problem with it, and again, I'm not the hugest Mike Myers fan, so you know somebody could just say maybe I'm missing the point. But part of what made Mike Myers scary is that there was no explanation for him. You know what I mean? It was just this normal kid all of a sudden just turns pure fucking evil, and no one knows why. And there is no motive. You know what I mean? He's almost scarier for the simple fact that there is seemingly no motive. And it's done in that perfect way where it's like just this chilling evil. And then in the Rob Zombie films, it's like, oh, he's a kid and he's crying, and you know, and then he sees a ghost mom or some shit like that. And he fucking talks even as like an adult. And like that just it's not what I ever found remotely interesting about Mike Myers. I mean, because he's not some supernatural creature. He's not undead like Jason. He's not a ghost haunting your dreams like Freddy. He's just a man. I mean, in theory, you know, a 22 to the head ought to fucking take him down. But the fact that he's just really weirdly mysterious and, you know, there's no motive to him, it elevates what is basically a normal man to almost feeling like a force of nature. So I just feel like, and plus I don't like Rob Zombie's overall style. I generally think Rob Zombie's a hack.
What other films has he done aside from Halloween? I can't.
He did House of a Thousand Corpses and a couple of spin-offs of that. And I mean,
The Devil's Rejects. I barely remember them. They're not that good.
House of a Thousand Corpses is basically just like, you know, if a 12-year-old wrote Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I mean, it's not bad, but he's very much a one-trick pony on a lot of stuff like that. I mean, like I said, I kind of feel like the guy's a hack. I mean, he's not Eli Roth bad, but he's close.
Speaking of bad horror, did you actually catch Alien Covenant?
Oh no, as far as I'm concerned, they don't make Alien movies no more.
Oh, dodged a bullet.
I mean, I as bad as the Alien versus Predator movies were, I at least didn't feel like they were just taking a shit on everything about aliens.
I'm actually in the belief Ridley Scott's senile. I can't explain it. There's no other way of explaining it because I'm looking at the Blade Runner reviews and everyone is actually saying it's almost close to a perfect film. And I mind you, I don't like Blade Runner 1. I'm going to get shot for that. I think it's boring. But everyone is saying, even people who actually said this, and I thought they were trolling me. They said Harrison Ford, one of his best performances. Then you look at the promos and it looks like he just walked on set with jeans and a shirt and said, "Who's paying me?"
Yeah, I actually I sort of agree with you. I think Blade Runner, the first Blade Runner, is overrated. I don't think it's a bad movie by any stretch. I didn't dislike it by any stretch, but the sheer volume of people sucking its dick, I think, is uncalled for.
I mean, the love it gets is on the sort of level of 2001 of An Empire Strikes Back. It's probably I'll take it over Empire and 2001, but whenever I see a top 5 list of sci-fi films and I see that on the list, I know it's someone who I won't agree with. But
I don't think it would make my top 5 sci-fi lists. I mean, I'd probably put it above any of the Star Wars movies, but I mean, I think anybody who listens to my channel for a while knows I think even the best Star Wars movies are painfully overrated.
Oh yeah. I mean, I don't see the hype for Empire. I agree with Razor Fist. It's got the everything past Hoth and before sort of the sort of final act. It drags.
I'll be honest with you. I don't see the hate for Jedi.
Yeah, it's basically a New Hope, but just not as good. And I like New Hope a lot. I don't think I think New Hope is it's not sophisticated, but it does everything right. It's a perfect sort of first, second, third act.
I don't think Empire does any decent job as standing alone as a movie. It is a good chapter in a trilogy, but I mean, you could almost watch Jedi on its own. You know, okay, you can catch up to what's going on. You could definitely watch New Hope on its own. It was meant to be watched on its own. You can't watch Empire on its own. You know what I mean? And it's not even like the way Back to the Future 2 was, where it was like meant to be half of a movie. You know what I mean? Like, no, it just doesn't stand alone on its own. Jedi, I think, gets a bum rap because I mean, look, you could sneer at the Ewoks all you want, but the whole Jabba the Hutt sequence in Jedi, like from beginning to end, that's damn near my favorite part of Star Wars. Like the first half of Jedi, I think, is just fantastic.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with it. It does everything right. It's again most of it comes down to sort of the themes with Empire, which I agree. They're obviously finding out that Darth Vader is a spoiler alert for anyone who's not seen it. Darth Vader is Luke's father, but those sort of themes, and they're good on its right. But I think again, maybe it's personal preference. I just don't find it an interesting film. It's not like A New Hope where I can generally like watching it. I have enjoyment, or even with, as I say, Return of the Jedi. I could sit through it and I can enjoy it with a smile on my face. But Empire, I feel like it's like writing an essay. It might be interesting, but I just don't have fun with it.
Empire is like, I almost feel like Empire is designed strictly to get you hyped for Return of the Jedi. Like, it's basically just like, oh, shit's getting real. Oh, you better tune in for the third movie. And maybe that's part of why people dislike Jedi is that, you know, I mean, the entire runtime of Empire is almost writing checks Jedi couldn't cash. You know, it's almost just it almost just acts as a hype man for the end of the trilogy. To the extent where, I mean, it really doesn't have anything close to a satisfactory ending.
Yeah, it's a perfect bridge, but a bridge on its own just can't stand. It needs that sort of, you know, that starting point and that destination. And you know, I'll be honest, I've seen episode 7. It's not Episode 7 I put on the par with maybe Star Trek '09 in terms of quality. It's not bad. You can bin. It's popcorn. There's nothing there. Rogue One is worth a watch. I'm not sure if you have seen it,
I
but
haven't seen Rogue One. I mean, honestly, I went to go see four shitty Star Wars movies in a row.
mm,
I just on principle couldn't go see a fifth one, even if I heard it might have been good.
yes,
I actually hate Episode 7 more than any of the prequels, and
mm,
on some levels, I admit that it's in many ways a better film. It's just it's a completely unnecessary film for one. I mean,
mm,
at least the prequels are trying to do something. It really kind of just shits on the original trilogy. Like it really almost makes everything in the original trilogy for naught.
mm,
And then I mean, Rey just sucks the air out of the room in every scene she's in. I just
uninteresting.
I just can't.
Someone actually put it quite best. The film would actually have been better if they removed her and had it as sort of a buddy film between the Black Stormtrooper and the X-Wing pilot.
Yeah, I've said that on here numerous times. I think the way to save that film, you got to have a buddy comedy between what is it? The
Poe
black
and
Poe and
then
the two dudes, because they actually work really well together. You
mm,
have those two hanging out with the little butt plug robot, and you got some funny stuff right there.
mm,
And then Rey is gone. Okay, Rey is gone. That every scene with her, you cut that out of the script with scissors and throw it in the incinerator. You focus more on Darth Autism
mm,
and his relationship with, Han and Leia. And then you scale down the fucking villains like means and plans to something like imagine if they had like a little because like at this point they're ISIS, they're not an empire, you know what I mean?
yeah. Well,
So
they're meant
imagine if like they had this little tiny kind of almost the size of just a destroyer, right? And maybe it had like some cloaking technology. And what
yeah.
it did was it just got into a solar system and it just dropped these giant rods of uranium down on this planet from orbit,
Mm,
like fuck your shit, and then just
mm,
got out of Dodge, right?
yeah. Guerrilla
That would be the
tactic.
threat instead of planet sized Death Star because fuck you. So
Mm,
if you made the plan less stupid, if you focus more on Darth Autism and his parents, and then had the buddy comedy thing, you'd have had a really cool movie there. And what would
mm,
have been really cool is imagine if Darth Autism there, because what I really found interesting about him was he's basically the most powerful Sith or Jedi we'd seen on the screen,
mm,
like bar none. He's easily 10 times more powerful than Vader, but he's a huge faggot, and he's held back by that. You know what I mean? He's
mm.
So if you'd almost had him like basically taken down by two guys with actually no force abilities, just because it's more his own character flaws than the actions of the heroes that defeat him,
Mm,
that would have been a cool story.
yeah.
Because that's what made him sort of interesting to me. Like, I know everyone was making fun of it, but when he had like his autistic meltdown and trashed his fucking room and shit,
Yeah.
that's a more interesting villain to me than just scary guy in black armor like
Yeah.
Darth
I mean,
Vader.
again, there's so much stuff with which people seem to forget with A New Hope. I mean, you could go over the cast, and I think you've mentioned this before, and you can find articles that say this. There's actually links, and here's the reasons why you can trace why this is right. It's mentioned that Robert England was a pick for, and then Christopher Walken as well. But Robert England's important because he was actually one of the surfers in Apocalypse Now. And if you've seen Heart of Darkness, the documentary on it, George Lucas was very interested with Francis Ford Coppola to actually do a proper, not actual Vietnam Apocalypse Now, but to actually do a one-to-one Heart of Darkness film. And obviously, as we know, Harrison Ford was a carpenter on that set at the time, and they just asked him to recite some lines. So, looking at the characters and how they go, George Lucas, I reckon 90% of the stuff he wasn't imagining past New Hope. He made it up on the spot.
Oh yeah, I mean it's clear if you watch New Hope and you know any background behind it, it's clear that like what was going to end up happening if he got sequels, and he wasn't even sure he would.
Mm,
If he got sequels, Luke and Leia were going to be a couple, and Han Solo was going to be a loser that's maybe kind of likable that has a redemption arc.
yeah.
And he wasn't going to be the suave badass that he would become. we all like Han Solo because we like Harrison Ford.
Mm.
On paper, Han Solo is a shithead.
Mm.
You know, he's a loser. He's driving around in his space Camaro with a DirecTV satellite on it, and he's, you know, he owes half the galaxy fucking money. He's like, even that famous line of like, I did the thing in something parsecs. Like, to me, that comes across as like he's just drunk and bullshitting.
Yeah, he's talking shit. It's
like he doesn't. He's not even aware of what he's saying. He's like, yeah, I did that thing. Let me tell you something about you that you don't know. So yeah, I mean, if you had somebody that, you know, that was far less, you know, bad boy alpha, make the girls' panties drops, like, you know, Robert Englund or Christopher Walken, somebody that was kind of even creepy or weird, you know, imagine somebody like that, and you have what the character was originally meant to be. It's in some ways, the first trilogy is almost a really good example of writing by committee.
Yeah, you need someone like George Lucas getting tamed. I mean, I think the current person who's running Star Wars. I think is it Kathleen Kennedy. I know some of the rumors going around with the new Han Solo film, and even then, J.J. Abrams is now taking over Episode 9, so you can tell things on that sort of micromanagement committee stuff is not working. But as you say, of the original trilogy, it worked because the leading sort of creative force was good, but he wasn't someone you would trust with the whole thing. You need someone to say, no, that's not going to work. Good idea. You need to have that sort of reigning in force. Now you've got Disney, who's basically just committee because they're a committee.
I don't even think there shouldn't have been an Episode 7. There shouldn't be an Episode 8 or 9. What there should just be is stuff like Rogue One. There should be little spin-off movies, like that maybe end up getting sequels of their own if they're extremely popular and there's more to tell. But just explore other corners of this fictional universe. Try and actually grow the brand a little bit. I mean, but no, it's just, we're just going to and you know what? To some extent, I blame y'all Star Wars fans, because you're going to keep seeing it no matter how bad it gets. We could see the Black Stormtrooper literally butt fuck the X-wing pilot in the next one, and you'll applaud it as stunning and brave. Don't act like you won't.
And the alt-right will disown it because it's mixed raced.
Yeah, that'll be the big problem with it.
Well, that was one of the problems I want with the whole Episode 7, because it is verbatim, it is Episode 4, 5, and 6. It's why I'm more lenient on the Star Trek reboot. Not Into Darkness. I think Into Darkness is the devil, but 09, you've essentially got to get normies back into Star Trek, because after the next gen films, they're watchable for fans, but they're not. You can't recommend any film of the next gen films except maybe First Contact. Like, that's the funny thing. Wrath of episodes like 1 to 5, even the bad ones, like even Motion Picture, has aged a lot better than any of the next gen films.
1, 3, 4, and 6 you could probably enjoy with having barely seen even a minute of the original show. Or no, 2, 3, 4, and 6, not 1. Nobody can enjoy 1.
I mean, my grandmother doesn't watch Star Trek, but she still tears up at the death of Spock in Wrath of Khan.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Like the next gen, I agree that the next gen movies were. And look, the problem was that just the nature of the next generation was never going to lend itself well to movies.
Yeah.
But I don't know. The 09, I knew that Star Trek was dead with the 09 reboot. And while it was kind of I think it was almost the dead cat bounce effect.
Yeah.
Because now we see with something like Star Trek that managed to maintain a solid continuity for 50 years. Once you sever that, you've kind of cut the anchor off a boat.
Yeah.
And it's just going all over the fucking place now.
I mean,
and now you end up with Star Trek Discovery. You could have done something else there. I don't even know what else you could have done. But if move it, first of all, stop making movies would have been my advice, and then just, I don't know, make a new TV show. Skip ahead another 100 years or something.
I mean, I think the TV shows do lend them. Well, not no, the movies lend themselves to the TV shows. You can't have the films without the TV shows. I don't think. Like you,
Yeah, and
a lot of them is they're pre-recognized cast. Everyone, like I've reckoned more people are familiar with Spock's sort of hand gesture than they are with most Star Wars things. It's just that popular. Just
I
make
mean,
something new.
I've heard people argue like, oh, are they going to do DS9 movies? I'm like, that would have been a disaster too.
No,
Um,
it's
it just didn't lend itself to that. Again, I would have, okay, so and Enterprise I think was a mistake. I don't think we needed to go back. Okay. Um, and in some ways, even before '09, I would argue maybe Enterprise was the death, was the beginning of the death of it.
oh yeah.
Because when you go and watch Enterprise, it feels so out of place to every other Star Trek show.
Mm.
I would argue as a whole, it feels the less like even when fundamentally to the very opening sequence. What was every opening sequence to a Star Trek show? It was some instrumental music while you saw this majestic ship go across the stars, or in DS9's case, you just saw ships coming in and out of a space station.
Mm.
And then what was like the song to Enterprise was like some gay ass song about like touching
It was
the
pop
rainbow.
tier.
Like, you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of like if you ever seen that one South Park where they like hijack the alien spacecraft and there's a song of like flying so high above the sky.
I was
Like
thinking of Dawson's Creek.
that that sounds like the theme song to Enterprise to me. And it's just but yeah,
So
with the '09 reboot, I was like, I mean, because here's the thing, like there were parts in the I guess part 12, the Into Darkness one at the beginning where I thought maybe we're starting to remember what Star Trek is, and then it goes completely off the rails to stupid again. And I've heard Beyond was even good, but at this point you may end up with good and bad coming out of this franchise, but you sort of suck the heart out of it,
Oh yeah, it's because Beyond kind of flopped at the actual box office, and they had plans. They actually, talking of continuity, the full film they actually wanted to get back. Oh God, what's Kirk's father? But you know the actor who played it, obviously four, because the guy who played four played him before he got famous. They wanted to bring him back, and they did actually want to tie up the continuity with the fourth film and the original cast, which I don't know how they would have done that, but that could have worked. But
I mean,
I
something
think
like
with '09,
superhero books. I mean, alternate universes have long been a staple of superhero comics. I mean, getting back to like DC's Silver Age when they completely restarted everything and just said our Golden Age books were Earth 2, this is Earth 1. I mean, that's long been, and because both of them had the multiverse, you could basically argue all those things exist just parallel to each other,
Yeah.
But yeah, Star Trek kind of had a multiverse, but there was obviously the mirror universe, which was, I think, some of the expanded stuff and explained that's like a flip side antimatter universe of the main universe. That's why it literally quote unquote mirrors the other one. But I mean, there was episodes of other parallel universes, divergent timelines and shit like that. But it always maintained a core continuity that they were usually really, really good at. Even when they would fuck something up, they would then kind of have some explanation for why, and to just sort of suck that out of it, that's kind of when I knew they'd sucked the heart out of it. And with Discovery, I think I've been proven right. Because, for all its faults, it's not a perfect show. Seth MacFarlane's Orville is a better Star Trek show than Star Trek Discovery.
I need to get into that. I can't find a channel. I mean, most of my stuff's Netflix. I can get Rick and Morty, but I do. My old man's watched Orville. He likes it, and I don't know if you've seen the Rotten Tomatoes, but when you compare the critics and the reviews for either one, it's basically the critics hate Orville, but the audience likes it. And then with Star Trek, it's like the critics love it, but the audience is sort of lukewarm on it.
Orville's kind of interesting because it's not really it was basically marketed as a comedy, but it's really not. And it's not just strictly a drama either. It really straddles the line between the two. and for the most part, it does it well. I think episode 3 was pretty much a dud here, but um, it is
happens.
season 1. You gotta be at least a little lenient on a show in
Mm.
season 1. A show is still kind of finding its voice. I think the Orville has the potential to really grow into something very, very cool.
Mm.
I think it would be hilarious if Star Trek Discovery is canceled after a season and the Orville goes like 7 to 10
God.
years. That would be
That would
fucking
surprise me.
hilarious.
We'll say McFarlane's not. I mean, is Family Guy still going? I can't really think of what else McFarlane's going to be doing.
Yeah, supposedly McFarlane sold a good amount of the rights to Family Guy to fund other projects, like he did the 2 Ted movies, and he
Yeah.
did A Million Ways to Die in the West. Ted movies made good money back. A Million Ways to
Yeah.
Die in the West, not so much.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, he actually wishes Family Guy would die.
Mm.
It's funny. He wishes it would die.
I
That's
don't
I
see
think part of like why he if you watch the show, like he's actually like the last 3, 4, 5 years maybe, he's made it increasingly dark, and there's times when you can tell he's almost trying to alienate fans.
Mm.
He's almost trying to chase everyone away from it.
Mm.
I mean, he started
We'll
throwing
see.
like incest jokes in there and shit.
Oh, yeah.
Like just trying to
Well,
disgust everybody away from the show.
I mean, talking about things that should be dead. I think I was watching one of your earlier. Well, not earlier. Must have been about 4 weeks ago, maybe. Luke showing the demographics to Simpsons viewers. I'm being honest. For about 3 years I've been asking people, "Do you watch The Simpsons?" and I don't get a reply saying yes. How is this show still alive? I don't know
I
how you guys are still watching it.
I don't know. Like, I mean, every once in a while, maybe I'll catch one, like a new one. But I mean, I watch Family Guy more often than I watch Simpsons, and I don't even watch that very often anymore.
Yeah. I mean,
I mean,
you'll see
if
Family Guy on Fox. I don't see Simpsons shown in the UK. There's like
oh
Sky,
well,
and that's it.
I mean, here, like, let me put it this way: if it's like Sunday night and there's a new Family Guy on, and I just happen to think of it, I'll check it out. But it's not like appointment television to me. You know what I mean? It's not like, oh, I got to watch Family Guy.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
fucking 8 o'clock on, you know, 8 o'clock on Wednesday nights is fucking Arrow for me. You know what I mean?
Mm.
But 9 o'clock on Sunday nights, I guess I'll watch Family Guy if I'm already watching TV.
Mm.
But I don't even bother with Simpsons half the time. And I mean, good lord, there was a time. I mean, I'd say probably seasons 2 to maybe 8 or 9 when Simpsons was the tits.
Oh, yeah, Golden.
I mean, it was some of the most brilliant television you could find.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, the impact it's had, it's so quotable. I think there's a thing I've noticed with animated cartoons, especially with watching Family Guy and South Park. I've noticed if they try and have the sort of they always try if there's like a sort of villain, like I don't say villainous, but let's say an antagonist character like Cartman, or you've got oh god, who's it in Simpsons? It'd be Bart. I
Mm-hmm.
noticed they always try and lead him into being more gay. Like you watch Family Guy, for example, Stewie went from being a sort of innocent child who can build guns to sort of a closeted homosexual. Then you look at Cartman, they move that shit as well, or at least they basically amplify the most obnoxious characteristics and make it just that. So went from being sort of an endearing, sort of not intelligent but wanted to do a good thing to just being an idiot. Same with Homer. Same with like even Peter in the early seasons was a good guy, just not the most intelligent, and then they just make him an idiot.
One of
I
the
noticed that with every show.
one of the things I remember a few years ago, and this was probably like this might have been 5 years ago. I mean, The Simpsons has been on long enough that it's even had ups and downs. You know what I mean?
Mm.
But I remember like I hadn't watched The Simpsons in a few years. I had just given it up. I can't take it anymore. It's too bad.
Mm.
And like I think the movie had come out, and I gave it like, and I was like, okay, I finally watched the movie, and I'm like, all right, I think I'm gonna. I can't remember exactly what it was, but I remember like I'm like, okay,
Getting a
I'm
bit of
gonna check
robot
The
voice, by the
Simpsons
way.
out again. Oh, hang on, let me pop in and out real quick. Fix it.
Mm.
Hang on. Be right back.
Oh, Chris is gone. Let me get my Ouija board. I'm going to get some Amish guests in. Any questions? Nothing. How do you stop drowning in shit? That's not a good question.
Okay, I'm back. All right, so I got back into Simpsons, right? And it starts off amazing. Like it was like Bart had won some. Bart was going to be like Krusty's assistant or something, and
Mm.
Homer was going with him, and they were going to travel. And I thought, holy crap, this is going to be a Homer and Bart and Krusty episode. That sounds fucking awesome. And then they cut
Mm.
over to Lisa, and Lisa goes to music camp, and we're going to follow Lisa. And I'm like, oh shit, a Lisa episode? Not so much. Even in the best of
Oh,
times, those were bad. And then like all the other campers were fucking voiced by the cast from Glee.
oh.
And I got like 10 minutes into that episode. It was like done. But I just remember it like started off so strong. I'm
Mm.
like, oh man, maybe The Simpsons is back. This sounds fucking awesome. And then like 5 minutes later, I'd be like, why are you doing this to me?
I don't know if this was a fan theory or just sort of pinch for salt rumors, but with the early seasons of Simpsons, um, Krusty the Clown and Homer Simpson are never on screen, and there was an apparent line they may have actually gone with a story arc where Homer might have actually been Krusty the Clown.
Yeah, they were kind of kicking that idea around.
His appearance is
Early.
almost identical.
They were thinking of doing that. Well, I mean, another thing that's funny is in the first time we ever see Smithers, he's black.
Mm. Oh, and they changed
Like
that straight
in
away.
the first episode, and he wasn't meant to be. It was just a coloring mistake. And yeah, I don't know whatever Korean animation studio they sent it to, but
That, that's another case. He went from being sort of a brown-nosing arse licker to flamboyantly. I think I think the actual writers called him a Burns sexual.
oh well, they I think they did. They I think they always had the Smithers was gay thing planned from very early on.
Mm.
But I've heard rumors that where Simpsons really died creatively was that episode where we come to find out that Smithers, or I'm sorry, that Principal Skinner isn't really Principal Skinner.
Oh, who is
Like
he?
there's,
I've missed this episode.
oh, this was reasonably early on. This was like season 8 or 9. But we come to find out that the real Seymour Skinner had died in Vietnam, and this guy was just some loser who like took his place. Like he was supposed to like take the flag to his mom, and then when Mrs. Skinner was like, "Oh, you look a little different from Seymour,
Oh,
but
I remember that. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure you're Seymour," and then like he just took the place because he had nowhere to be, and you know, like that was kind of the first episode where it sort of punished you for caring. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people argue that's basically when Simpsons died, and creatively speaking, it was right around then that I saw a real decline in quality.
Mm. Well, I think it was at that point they started going on to Futurama because once I can't remember the films and I've not seen the later seasons, but seasons 1 to 4 are close to perfect. There is no dip in quality with Futurama. Consistently good, I'd say.
I think even the worst seasons of Futurama are still decent, and they're
Mm.
still better than half of what Simpsons has produced over the years.
Oh
In
yeah.
fact, the only episode of Simpsons recently that caught my attention that I actually really enjoyed was they did a crossover episode with Futurama,
Mm.
and it was one of the episodes of Family Guy recently I thought was really good was the crossover episode with Simpsons. I thought it was a good celebration of both franchises,
Mm.
which is what something like that should be. But yeah, by and large, I mean, even Rick and Morty sadly has peaked. I mean, as much as I love Rick and Morty, and don't get me wrong, yeah, I know the Rick and Morty fan base is obnoxious at times, but it's still a funny, pretty clever show.
Mm.
But it's pretty clear going through season 3 that it's peaked after the end of season 2. Like, even though it's been kind of funny this season, it doesn't have the same heart that it did.
I had someone talk to me about this. I think, and it's a similar case. I know you've not seen Kingsman, but I thought the jokes were all there. I'd argue it's funnier in places, and I think season 2. I'm mixed on season 2. I thought the episode with the brain bugs I think is probably the best one, and it's by far one of the most interesting episodes. But I think with season 3, it was someone put it quite well. You know, when you get with each episode, it's sort of like a story and a B story. Like, for example, Pickle Rick, you got Pickle Rick, and then you've got the psychiatry sessions. I think with season 3, aside from maybe the first episode and the episode with the Rickopolis one, the stories don't really end well. End well as in they're not mixed well. It doesn't feel like there's a decent payoff. Like the jokes are good, but it feels rushed. Like I don't think, say with Pickle Rick goes well, but I don't think the psychiatry session goes anywhere. And even
Well,
like
no, I
with,
think
let's
the
say,
payoff at the end of the psychiatry session is really good when she just like kind of calls Rick out on his bullshit.
yeah, that's good, I admit, but
I think that pays
it,
off.
I don't think it overlaps well though, because it feels like Pickle Rick's on one speed, and the psychiatry session does pay off well. Yeah, I'd change that. And take for example, actually, no, I know a better episode, the second one, the Mad Max one.
Oh, that
I'm being
one's
honest,
awful.
I can barely remember that episode.
That one is so.
It
That
just
was the one where I actually thought maybe the show is dead. Like
mm,
just because and then it felt so off, and then I heard like they had hired a bunch of female writers, and I'm like, oh, that explains it.
mm,
Because like the Mad Max episode in like its dark tone, it felt like all the things people criticize Rick and Morty for being. Oh, it's
mm,
just a bunch of nihilist fedora bullshit.
mm,
And I don't really think it is, but that episode certainly is.
mm.
That episode is ass. Um, and I think it was basically some girl in the writing room wanted to prove she could be dark just like the boys. And it doesn't work.
I'm not sure if I'm going to sign off, but I just need to. I'll be right back in 1 minute.
All right. But yeah, I like Rick and Morty. I still find it entertaining. I still watch it on a Sunday night, although I have to admit it's getting harder to justify because the fan base is cancer. But even Dan Harmon or whatever, the creator of it, all the obnoxious shit he's been running his mouth about this past couple months, where he's trying to prove that he's feminist or something. I don't know what the hell got into him, because a lot of early Rick and Morty actually shits on feminism. Hell, there's a planet of females that's just making fun of that kind of shit. Yeah, I just it's getting harder to justify watching Rick and Morty, and it's almost get the fan base of it. The fan base of it is so fucking terrible that it's now like it's almost like I don't want to publicly admit that I watch Rick and Morty. Like I don't want to. Like I actually have a Rick and Morty T-shirt I got off of one of these sites like Ripped Apparel or something like that, where it's like the pop culture mashups, where it's like Doc Brown and Marty are like flying the little DeLorean, and then Rick and Morty are flying a little spaceship, and like Rick is like hanging out of the side of the spaceship, and Doc Brown's hanging out of the side of the DeLorean, and they're like Doc Brown's hitting him with a hoverboard, and Rick's hitting him with a beer bottle. It's a fun little T-shirt. I don't even want to wear it anymore because now I feel like one of those jackasses who thinks he's lay intellectual because I watch Rick and Morty. Like some of these Rick and Morty fans are just fucking horrendous. Somebody says Morty should have been with Rick in the Pickle Rip episode. They play off each other better. The psychiatrist story was born. It's funny too because like there was Beth and Rick were going on some sort of adventure in that last episode, and then he quits halfway through and he goes, "Let me tell you what an adventure needs: some stakes, a way I can benefit, and apparently Morty." Let's see. So he says no one gives a fuck about Lisa or Marge. Lisa used to be like the moral center of The Simpsons, and now she's like this obnoxious SJW. And I think like the episode early on where she became a vegetarian was the beginning of her being fucking shit. Let's see. People talking about when I went robot voice. South Park is extremely hit or miss these days. I think these past couple seasons, like what was it, a season ago when they were all celebrating how South Park was going after the SJWs? I think that was the death of South Park. That was the last season where I gave up on them. I think they had been a little hit or miss before, but now, oh man, I think South Park's ass now.
Yeah, I mean, the whole overarching. I mean, I used to religiously watch that show like a lot of people, and I'm not watching the current season they're airing, and I tried watching the last one. Just it bored me. I don't see. They go on, for example, you'll see, is it Matt Stone saying, "Oh, we're not going to go after Trump, and we're not going to try and be repetitive," but they still do the same thing each season. I'm honest, it's not fun to watch anymore.
Here's the thing, too. Like, first of all, the way they went after SJWs was pussy. They pussyfooted around. And I mean, for South Park, who normally doesn't hold, made its name for not holding back, to hold back the way they did. And then to be like, LOL, Trump's so dumb. Like, fuck you guys, okay? Look, I'm not going to say Trump's turned out to be the most perfect president ever, all right? And I'm not going to say he hasn't disappointed, But when it comes to that 2016 election, we had the most clear choice we've had in generations. And for you to sit there with your stupid, I'm above it all, both sides are dumb but me, pseudo-centrist bullshit was ridiculous at that point. Yeah, if you're talking about fucking Bush versus Gore, yeah, it makes it, that was a time when, yeah, anybody with 3 fucking brain cells was above that. Same with fucking Bush and Kerry. Hell, same with McCain and fucking Obama. Or even McCain or Obama and fucking Romney. Any of those elections, I could see someone saying both of these candidates are shit. There's barely that much of a significant difference. I don't care. But we had the clearest choice we've ever fucking had in 2016.
And the fun thing is, everyone seems to forget there was at some point an Obama versus Clinton with the Democrat primaries. You're talking about someone who is a veteran of DC getting destroyed by someone who was a nobody up until, 2007?
Man, I remember that election cycle. I remember when she was publicly fantasizing about Obama getting assassinated.
Yeah, and that just goes.
Everyone forget that, but she was all like people were like, "Why are you still in the race? It's mathematically impossible for you to get the nomination. You're just ripping the party apart." And she's like, "Well, you never know. I mean, remember Bobby Kennedy?"
Yes,
I'm like, "Holy shit!"
That's almost a perfect argument, though. It's like, yeah, vote for me because the other guy might get shot. It's, I when I have this point, I mean, trying to argue for Trump in America must be hard in some places, but trying to argue for Trump in the UK is sort of the nightmare difficulty. There's so many layers to it because you can't in the 2-minute space you might have or the 20 seconds, you've got to basically point out the primaries, you've got to point out who he's contesting, and then obviously now everyone's going crazy over the Puerto Rico stuff, and everyone seems to be thinking, oh, he's just shit talking Puerto Rico. It's like, yeah, but you're kind of missing the point of a lot of stuff. You're just looking at his tweets when you're not realizing that A, Puerto Rico's a shithole, and B, they're misusing the resources. They're sent he's sending insane amounts to them.
Oh yeah, first of all, are we all going to sit here and pretend like Puerto Rico wasn't a shithole before the hurricane? Okay, because it was absolute ass. Their infrastructure was shit. It was crumbling. Their government was banana republic levels of corrupt. Now the other thing is, that speech where the fucking mayor of San Juan, she's sitting there running her mouth about how Trump didn't send anything. She is standing in front of pallets and pallets and pallets of bottled water and supplies the federal government had sent down.
Yeah.
She's literally standing in front of proof that she's full of shit. Not only that, she's running around with this fucking t-shirt she had professionally made that says, like, help us, we're dying. Well, gee, apparently the fucking t-shirt store is up and running. Or whatever the post office that you apparently mail ordered that from. It's not like she had like a handmade fucking thing. No, she had that professionally done in the middle of the apocalypse apparently down there.
I can't remember if it was Adam Baldwin or Justicar's Twitter, but I was looking. Apparently, same with Africa when you get a lot of sort of foreign aid basically going to gangsters and cartels and sort of warlords. You're having the same thing happen in Puerto Rico. It's going to gangsters. You know, if there's a crisis like this, you're going to have a black market, and you know people are going to be selling water at extortionate rates.
Oh, and the
That's
governor of
apparently
Puerto
what's
Rico has
happening.
basically been out there saying, "Oh, Trump's doing fine. He's helping us." It's the mayor of San
Mm,
Juan that's running her fucking mouth, and that's the one the media is focusing on because it supports their narrative.
mm.
But fuck that whole island. It's a shame it didn't sink when the fucking hurricane came. It's a shame it just didn't blow every fucking thing away in that shithole of an island.
Mm. Well, again, it goes to the people we're arguing with. We're not arguing with people who are trying to be correct in their assertions. They're just trying to be sort of. They just want to win. And the problem with that sort of thing is, I think I was looking at a tweet earlier by acquaintance of mine, John Collins, arguing with a narcissist. You're not going to have a good time with that. It's going to be always a losing struggle because even if you do push forward that something is undoubtedly correct, they'll find a way of twisting it. It's like, oh, Trump's pushing all this aid forward, insane amounts. Oh, but he's not doing it in the right way. It's like, what is the right way then? You know, you've got to put stuff in a boat and put it towards Puerto Rico. What's hard about that?
It's nuts, man. I mean, and again, we're gonna all act like Puerto Rico wasn't a shithole beforehand. Of course it was. It's full of Puerto Ricans. and, and then there's like the picture of like I don't know the mayor of San Juan standing in like knee deep in water and then Trump playing golf, which apparently isn't even recent. It's like from 2 weeks ago. This picture of Trump playing golf, and they're like, "Who's the real leader?"
Yeah, a bit of robot as well. Yeah, they always get a photo like that and just push it, and you're not going to argue with it. The people you're getting aren't going to argue genuinely.
Nope. Let me see if I can fix the robot.
Mm. Robloff. Okay. Yeah, as I said, I was watching some of the tweets, and honestly, there must be a point where you do grow bored of this. I can't remember the quote on the CNN article, but talking of sort of the importance of majorities in terms of voting, how quickly that changes. It's all about narrative when it comes to these guys. If they can't, as a coworker of mine puts it, no matter what Trump does, he's always going to be found wrong. That's honestly the best way you can find with that, whether he's genuinely wrong or not.
Somebody in the chat says, "Is it bad that my family's Puerto Rican, yet I still find Bechtloff's rantings on it amusing?" Well, you know then. You know firsthand.
Isn't because I was on NC Clark. I browsed one of her Discord channels. I think she's Puerto Rican if I remember correctly.
She's some sort of Hispanic, yeah.
Something Rican. I mean, there's Costa Rico, Puerto Rico. I can't remember. If it's not English, we don't really care.
Somebody says the port of San Juan is full of supplies. They're not being delivered because the drivers' union is on strike. I don't know if that's true, but
I've heard the drivers are a problem. That's what I've heard
that's
on
fitting
Twitter.
if it's true.
Yeah, but then you know the free market will fix this. Well, again, that's the sort of thing. A drivers' union. I'm assuming it's probably overpay.
Somebody says NC
Again,
Clark Cuban. That probably explains why she's not a leftard. The Cubans are generally pretty base. I mean,
oh yeah, I mean,
but generally they are.
I was listening to one of her. Was it Clark over coffee? It's like, oh hey, oh wow, boy, this is why women should not be in politics. I can't do her voice, but essentially, if you just hear this sort of thing in normal conversation, you would not expect it from a woman. It's like, yeah, women shouldn't be in politics.
Well,
it's just brilliant.
The definition of a misogynist is somebody whose opinion of women is as low as women's.
Oh yeah, women are. The worst bullies I've had in my life are women. In terms like just like when you're 12 or 13, having a girl rally a gang against you. I mean, the average guy, they'll punch you, but you'll end up having a conversation about football or video games an hour later.
Yeah, women. The fairer sex is definitely the crueler one.
Mm.
How long have we been going on here? Probably for a while.
Mm.
Almost 2 hours. Shit. Well, I'm probably gonna wrap this up then, because if I go any longer, I'll be stepping on when Davis normally streams.
Oh yeah, he's in about 15 pro, I think.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this up. Sponsors down below: Veritas Morte and Ravendale, a couple of sci-fi books. Do check them out. Good stuff. And I'm kind of giving them some free episodes, so that's kind of why I'm not reading the full ad copy here. I'm giving them extras. Tip jar, where you can give some shekels. If you enjoy the show, give me some motherfucking shekels. Or maybe I can figure out how to fix the fucking robot voice. Yeah. And VidMe stuff is coming. I've got there was some audio delivered to Luke, so he's working on that stuff possibly as we speak. So new VidMe vids are coming. If you haven't checked out my VidMe channel, check it out. Also, check me out on the Gab, the Twitter, the Facebook, the Bechtloff, and all those places. That's especially important now because the schedule is going to be in a bit of a state of flux over the next couple weeks. So do keep tabs on me if you want to keep checking this out. And also, I don't know how the fuck it works, but like, if you're subscribed to me, like, there's like a bell or something you should be clicking or something. I don't know. Like YouTube, don't trust YouTube subscriptions. Just check in on the channel regularly, especially with my schedule being as erratic as it is.
Not to interject, I've noticed I get sort of weird notifications on certain channels. I think that bell, every time you upload, will actually give a specific notification. So click it if you want Bechtloffs.
Yeah, YouTube is bound and determined to kill itself, but that's a whole different topic. So yeah, check out the sponsors, check out the tip jar, check me out on the various social medias, and go check out Davis's stream. He'll be streaming shortly. So that's all I got for tonight, folks. Thanks for listening. Bechtloff out.